Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I'm Shana Dinaji, and on behalf of TEXTO, we're going to be talking about speaking. So I think you'll all agree that speaking can be fun. And if you don't agree, then hopefully by the end of this webinar, I'll have helped to change your mind. So in this webinar, we're going to be talking about speaking activities. And I think we all love to speak. I do. I'm sure you do. The children in your class do. And sometimes it's difficult to get them to speak English and to do speaking activities. So we're going to be looking today at how we can think about some simple ways to set up activities, to monitor, and to do feedback. And hopefully these are ways that will help make the speaking activities fun and effective as well. So hope you've got a bit of pen and paper with you, and off we go. So if we were in class, we would do, if we were in the same space, we would do a speaking activity. Now, I'd get you to talk in pairs or groups. As we're not, I'd like you just to think about the following questions. If you have a piece of paper with you, you might like to make some notes. So how often do you do speaking in class? When you think about your English lessons, do you make sure that you plan a speaking activity for every lesson? If so, is it just one activity or is it more than one activity? Just make a note, think about that. What are your three go-to activities? What are your three favorite speaking activities? I think, as teachers, we all have favorite activities that we like to do, those that we know always get good results. So just think about that for a moment. Do you prefer to do speaking activities in open class or in closed pairs and groups? You may find that you have very large classes, and for one reason or another, you prefer not to do pair work or group work. So when you think about speaking in your lessons, is it open class or small groups? Do you enjoy the speaking activities? Do your learners enjoy them? You may find that, you plan them, but you always dread the activities because you're worried about, what's going to happen, or, maybe these are the times of the lessons that are more problematic. Or on the other hand, these are things that you look forward to. And do you do speaking activities with all of your classes, or do you sort of reserve them only for those sort of small motivated groups that you have? Hopefully in today's webinar, we'll find ways that we can do it with all of them. And also, what are some of the problems that you experience when doing speaking? So I think, with large classes, sometimes, the children start to misbehave, or they use, Portuguese in the class, Portuguese or whatever language they speak, and that sometimes can be problematic. So hopefully these questions will get you thinking about speaking. We are now going to sort of go through the different sort of stages that we go through when we do speaking activities, and hopefully we will address some of these points. So one of the things that sort of struck me when I was thinking about planning this webinar is when we think about speaking, often, we need to think, is it a speaking activity or is it a controlled oral practice activity? Now, of course, because we're talking about teaching children, and in some cases low levels, there is a slight overlap with this type of activity, because the amount of language they have is quite limited, and because of that, the speaking activity in a way is also a language practice activity. But I think we'll talk later about the features of a speaking activity, and I think hopefully that will help to distinguish between the two. So I'm going to show you two short clips of two activities, and I'd like you just to think, in your opinion, is this a speaking activity or is it an oral practice activity and a controlled oral practice activity? So I hope you enjoy these two short clips.
My name is Dailin. My favorite color is pink.
Okay. And?
My name is Afonso, and my favorite color is green.
Blue. All right. Green, green. All right. Okay. Excellent. So lots of purples, lots of blues, red. Only one red. Yeah, two reds. Right.
Is it big?
Yes.
Is it gray? Is it elephant?
That's too easy, Carlos. All right, so in my view, you saw two distinctive type of activities. So one was a sort of a drill, right, where the children were introducing themselves and talking about their favorite color. And then the other one, which was a guessing game. Now, in my head, these are very clearly, one is a speaking activity and one is a controlled oral practice activity. So my name is Shana, I like brown or whatever, is controlled oral practice, and the guessing game is a speaking activity. Yes, of course, it is also a language practice activity because they're practicing the question, is it a? But they could potentially do it by asking other questions, right? This was just one way of getting them to do the activity. So as I said, there is an overlap, but in my head, the guessing game, there is, there's more interaction, it's more communicative, and that makes it more of a speaking activity. Whereas the first one is very much, there is a pattern and a formula which they have to follow, and all the children use the same pattern and formula. However, there is an element of personalization there and an element of choice. So it is a drill, but it is perhaps sort of bordering on speaking because of the element of choice. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. All right, so in terms of looking at the distinction between these two, have a look at this list. And again, on your piece of paper, you might want to just make a little note. Is it, in your opinion, speaking? Maybe put number 1, or is it controlled oral practice? So a survey or a questionnaire done as a mingling activity. A drill. A question and answer drill done open class. And by open class, I mean it could be the teacher to the whole group or the teacher to sort of individual groups, or even open pairs. So 2 students asking each other. The same activity, but done in pairs. A role play. Listen and repeat after me. It's similar to a drill, but a drill can also take different forms. A spot the difference activity done in closed pairs. By closed pairs, I mean, all the children working simultaneously with the partner, right, in the lesson. Or the same activity done open class. And again, here we have 3 options. It could be the teacher to the whole class, the teacher to individual students, or open pairs. So 2 students doing it across the class with everyone else listening. And an information gap activity, an information gap or an opinion gap. These activities, I think, are quite common and a way for the students to interact with each other. So take a minute just to think, in your opinion, what is the difference between the two? And then let's have a look and see if you agree with mine. So I've color-coded these, and you might want to take a guess at what you think the colors are. But again, because we're not in the same room, I'm just going to tell you the answers. Right, so for me, the blue ones are very clearly speaking activities. And we're going to talk a little bit in a moment about the features of a speaking activity, and I think that will become clear. The green one is controlled practice. Right, so it's, where I say, this is a pen. I don't say that because it's not terribly interesting, but, or what's this? It's a pen or whatever. And the children repeat, right? And a drill can be similar to that, or it could be a substitution drill where they change, it's a pen, it's an elephant, it's a rubber, it's a book, it's a so there are different things, but it's very much focused on getting the language right? Focusing on the form of the language, the pronunciation of the language. And then we have the two purple ones, which I think can be both, but I've put them in a different color because for me, this distinction here is how much practice are all of the learners in the class getting, right? So if I do something open class, it limits the amount of students that can actually do the activity, right? So if it's me asking the whole class, they're responding chorally. If it's me asking individual students, unless I go around all 25 or all 30, not everyone is going to speak. And if it's in open pairs, again, you might not get everyone to speak. So I think here it's limiting, even though it could be, for example, the spot the difference could be very much a speaking activity. It's limited in terms of how many students are doing the activity at any one time. So let's think a little bit about what makes a speaking activity a speaking activity. So for me, these are some questions that you might want to ask yourself. So does it involve some form of interaction, right? So speaking by its nature is you speak to someone usually, right? So it involves some sort of interaction. Is it communicative? Does it involve more than one utterance, right? So are the students having to think of how to respond to something that they hear? Is there a choice in terms of language? So when we think about the activity I showed you earlier, even the one where, my name is, and I like that, it is a form of a drill, but there was a little bit of choice in what they said. And I think really important is there an opportunity for personalization, right? So, and this goes hand in hand with this one, what is it meaningful? So, if I'm just repeating things without having to think about what I'm saying, it's not very meaningful. It might be useful in terms of form and pronunciation, but is it meaningful as an actual activity in terms of speaking? And if I can relate that to my own life, it makes it more meaningful and memorable. Is it engaging, right? Is it something that I want to do? Is it something that I will enjoy doing? Am I interested in doing it? And is there an element of challenge, right? So often with the drill, we want it to be safe. We want them just to repeat because we want them to focus on the form, get an opportunity to get their tongues around the language. But when we move on to speaking, we want to add an element of challenge. And obviously we don't want to make it too difficult, but adding some personalization, adding an element of choice provides that challenge. And very, very important, is there a clear purpose to the activity? What is it you want the children to achieve with this activity? So once again, I'm going to show you two short clips. And this is, in fact, the same activity. You're going to see children doing the same activity, but in a slightly different way. So I want you, as you're watching this, to think about these features and if they are present in the activity, and in a way also, how are they different? All right, hope you enjoy these.
Cats?
Yes.
Monkeys?
Yes.
Fish?
Yes. Do you like ladybug? No. Do you like dog? Yes. Do you like snake?
All right, so I think, that was a sort of a mingling activity. It's a questionnaire, but you can see that the results were very different. So with the first pair, the children weren't actually asking questions. They were just saying the names of the animals with a sort of questioning tone. The second one, they were actually asking the question, right? Now, in my view, both of those sort of fulfill the criteria for a speaking activity, in that they were both communicating. Even when they were just saying dog, cat, they were still interacting. They were communicating, and they were achieving the purpose of the activity. So it didn't matter to me, the teacher, that they weren't asking full, using the full form of the question, because they were still managing to get the idea across. And in both of these examples, obviously the children had choice in terms of which animals they chose to ask about, right? So that made it personalized, it made it more meaningful, it involved more than one utterance, because they got to ask a question and answer, they were communicating and interacting. And I think you could see from the way they were doing it that they were engaged in the activity. So when we think about speaking, we need to think about the different stages in terms of classroom management and in terms of planning. So the first stage is obviously the setting up. And if you watched my previous webinar, I talked about the importance of instructions and the sort of three-step approach. So forgive me for repeating myself, but I think this is essential. So giving clear instructions, doing an example to demonstrate the activity, checking the instructions, and if necessary, doing yet another example. I think, we can't do too many examples. So, even if they only get to ask two questions, but, 3 of those were examples, but the 2 questions they ask, they're doing it well, is better than none at all. So I'm going to show you again 2 short clips. The first one is short. It's me giving some instructions. And the second one is a little bit longer. And here you can see the setting up of a sort of a more complex activity, the one where they are doing a sort of questionnaire around the class. So as you watch these, just think about, what is happening here and how involved are the children in the process of giving instructions and setting up. So I hope you enjoy these.
All right. Now I'm going to think of an animal. Think. All right. One of these here. Okay, I know. Ask me questions. Is it big? Is it small? Is it pink? Okay, so ask me a question. Put your hand up and ask a question. Yes.
Is it a big?
Is it
Big?
Yes, it is.
Is it gray?
Yes, it is. All right, and here we need 5 animals. So let's choose. Lada, tell me. Tiger. All right. Do you know how to write tiger? Do you want to tell me the letters?
T-I-G-R.
Before R?
E-R.
Okay, excellent. Another one. Let's another animal. Choose an. Oh. Should we put elephant here? Yeah, okay. No, another one. Yes.
Ladybug.
Ladybug. Do you know how to write it? Tell me. Oops. Why? Why? Excellent, very good. Okay, another one. Wolf, okay, do you know how to write wolf?
Yes.
Tell me.
H. Y.
W,
O.
O,
L. F.
excellent. All right, we need two more. Yes, Guilherme. Okay, can you spell it?
Yeah.
Excellent. And one more. Let's have just someone different. Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
Chameleon.
Chameleon. All right. Do you know how to spell chameleon? Let's call it a lizard. Okay, to make it easier. So how do we spell?
L. I. Z.
Mm-hmm.
A. L.
R.
R. D.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So now I want, let's have Maria. Maria, can you come here, please? Okay. You stand over here. All right. So what's your name?
Maria.
Maria. Okay. So I'm going to write here. Maria. Maria, do you like tigers?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you like ladybugs?
Yes.
Do you like wolves? You can say yes, no, or I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Okay. Do you like cats?
Yes.
Do you like lizards?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now, Maria, you come here. Here.
Okay.
You choose someone. Okay, so Mafalda comes there. Now you ask Mafalda, okay? So, what's your name?
What's your name?
Okay, now,
Do you like a tiger?
all right, just a moment, Maria, what's the question? Do you like?
Do you like a tiger? Yes. Do you like a ladybug? Yes. Do you like a wolf? Yes. Wolf? You do like a zebra? No, a cat. Yes. You do like a zebra?
Lizard.
A lizard? No.
No lizards. Okay, thank you very much, both of you. You can sit down, all right?
Right, so the activity is done, in terms of setting up. The children know what they have to do. And then we need to think a little bit about what we are doing while they are doing the activity. Now, because it's speaking, I think it's absolutely essential. Well, I think it's essential to monitor at every stage of the lesson, but with speaking even more so. In fact, I would say that this is probably the most important thing because, if we have a class of 25 or 30 students, how are we going to actually know how the children are doing the activity if we don't monitor? And there are many different ways of monitoring and different things that we can learn from monitoring. You'll see at the end of this two short clips again, where you see monitoring in action. But before I show you the clips, I'd like you just to sort of think a little bit about why we monitor and what we can learn from that. So in my view, there are two distinctive things here. First of all, we need to make sure that the students have understood the activity. I mean, how many times do we give the instruction, we set it up, we think very clearly, but then, they are doing something completely different, or they're not doing anything at all. right? So we need to be able to see if they've understood the activity, if they're actually doing the activity as we intended, and how individuals are coping. Right, if you have a class of 25, you're naturally going to have a mixed ability group. You're going to have those that have clearly understood the activity and are doing it really well. And there are some that are lost, you know, and are not managing to you know, ask and answer the question, or they don't know where to go next, etc. So it's our job as a teacher to walk around, to notice these things, and to actually engage with the students to help. So the other important thing is to be available to help. I mean, if we're standing at the front of the class while they're doing speaking activities, they are less likely to ask for our help. If we're right there, if they need it, they will ask for our help and we can step in. But also to collect language and information for feedback. So, you know, are they making mistakes? Are these important mistakes? Are they mistakes that need to be addressed? How well are the students doing the activity? You know, are they saying interesting things? Remember, the activities, we want to sort of provide feedback not only on the language, but also on the content, right? Engaging with the students, you know, just smiling, praising, showing an interest in what they are saying, right? Going back to the idea that we wanted to be engaging, we wanted to be motivating and fun. And, you know, the teacher is there. I mean, you know, that sort of, you know, the teacher walks past, the teacher hears, the teacher interacts with something they say. All of that will add to that engagement. So again, here you can see 2 short clips of monitoring in action. And now we come to the most, well, to another important stage, not the most important, but another important stage, which is feedback and assessment. So in your opinion, is there a difference? For me, there is a very clear difference, right? So feedback is when I am simply sort of feeding back on the task at hand, right? So, you know, how well did they do it? Is there some language correction that I need to provide? How, you know, do I want to focus on the content? Giving students credit for having done the activity well, etc. So for me, assessment is where, you know, I am thinking about individual students and how they've actually met the criteria for a particular activity. So I'm going to show you again 2 short clips, and I want you to think, you know, what is happening in these clips, and, you know, is it what form of feedback am I providing for the children here?
All right. So what was the question? Do you like? Now here we have to say with an S. All right. So do you like tigers? Do you like ladybugs? Do you like wolves? Do you like cats? Do you like, all right. And then the answer, yes, no, or I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure. What animals does Tomasz like?
Fish, giraffe, and monkey.
Oh, fantastic. Only 3. Right, fish, giraffe, and monkey.
Right, so in the first clip, I think you could see there is a need for some error correction, right? So, you know, this could be in response to things that I've heard while I'm monitoring, but it could also be, you know, in response to the setting up and to the examples that have been provided, right? So we want to make sure that they are successful in the task. In the second one, it's simply eliciting examples and showing an interest in what they said. It doesn't matter if they made mistakes or not. What matters is that they did the activity and that the teacher and everyone is interested in what they had to say. If we move on to assessment, then I think you could probably recognize, grids like these. We all use them, in our teaching. There's different criteria for how we want to assess our students. How are they, interacting? Are they, collaborating with each other? How accurate are they in their speaking? Do they actually sort of, meet the goal of the task, etc., etc. So these are things that we need to consider when we are assessing our students. And these grids are useful, but also quite complex sometimes. When we are monitoring, it's not always easy to use these grids. So I have some suggestions about how we can actually assess students, because we want to try to address all of our students, and we can't do that all of the time. So one thing obviously is when we monitor that we walk around with a bit of paper and we keep notes. You might want to use those grids, and if you're very good at doing that, you could actually fill in some of those grids as you're monitoring and walking around. My advice, though, is to assess different learners at different times. So let's imagine that in one lesson, in the lesson that you've seen clips of, I had 3 different speaking moments. So maybe, in the first speaking activity, I address, 5 of the learners. In the second one, I look at 5 different learners. And in the third one, again, another 5 different ones, right? So, and I can be walking around, I can be making some notes on those students, or, you have the grid at your desk, you monitor, and at the end of the activity, you just take 1 second to think, okay, so João did that activity really well. Right? What was he good at? Right? Maria, on the other hand, was struggling, or, so on. So you could just address individual students for different, different parts of the lesson. If you have good notes that you can refer to and grids that you keep, filling in, you could say that over a month or something, you try to assess each of the students twice. That means that in a term, you might have 4 or 5 speaking moments that you have managed to assess. All of this is impossible to do if you don't monitor closely, right? So monitoring is essential. And, walking around, making some notes, noticing, and if you don't make the notes while you're monitoring, at the end of the lesson, just take 5 minutes to think, okay, so today in that speaking activity, how did Joaquin do in the lesson, in that speaking activity? Was he engaged? Did he manage to do it, etc.? Or what about so-and-so, right? And then next activity, you make sure you target different learners. The other thing is to do group tasks, right? So to have students working in groups and you actually sitting with different groups and really listening and seeing how they're doing. And, there you can be maybe more meticulous about your note taking and using grids and so on to assess them. All right, so there are many different types of speaking activities. I asked you at the beginning to think about your 3 go-to, right? You saw here 3 of my favorites, right? So one would be like the guessing game, because children are always engaged in that, and it gives them a chance to interact with each other, a sort of a more fun kind of drill, and also a survey or a questionnaire. I think those work very well. So here you've got, so information gap activities, things like describe and draw, listen and find, finding similarities and differences work very well. Spot spot the difference activities are lots of fun to do. Show and tell. I mean, this is one example where if the children are actually speaking in front of a group or the whole class, it allows you to assess them a little bit more formally. Storytelling is a lovely way of getting them to speak. Acting out a story, although be careful with this one, because if they are simply reading the story, then are they speaking? Right? In my view, not. Right? So the acting out of the story has to involve some spontaneous speech. And talking about a picture. All right, here you can see some examples from Start the Magic, where you have some speaking cards with questions, or sort of finger puppets and so on, where they can sort of act out some stories. All right, just before we sort of say goodbye, I'm just going to show you another little clip from the lesson, and just think about how are the children doing the activity and how engaged are they? All right, I think, from my perspective, I think this shows that speaking can be fun, right? The children are enjoying the activity, they're getting some language practice, they're interacting with each other, but most importantly, they are engaged and having fun. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you'll have found, this will have made you think about your own speaking activities. Maybe you'll think about one or two things that you can implement in your own classes. And also I want to say a very, very big thank you to the school that allowed us to come to their school to record the class. A wonderful class. I was very lucky to be able to teach them. And also a big thank you to their teachers for allowing us to do this. So thank you and hope to see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Lei Educação. Um ponto de encontro.